Hey everybody, I'm here in Detroit, Michigan, my new home. Yes, I do live here in Detroit now. That right there behind us is the Ambassador Bridge. That is the bridge that takes you all the way over to Canada. Say hi, Canada. This coming February marks the 4th year that I have been daily driving this Hyundai Veloster N behind me, and I thought it's about time that I sit back and reflect on the good and the bad experiences I've had with this car. It's been mostly good, but there's obviously going to be some trade-offs and some bad parts of the experience owning a car like this. So without any further delay, let's get right into the good and bad of owning a Hyundai Veloster N. Now, the two areas I found to be the most negative parts of the experience would have to be just interior comfort and amenities, or lack thereof, and the maintenance. This was something I wasn't prepared for because I have not yet owned a car quite like this. One with, performance intentions and hardware to match, like beefier wheels with much more expensive sort of, track or racing inspired tires. When this car came out, Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tires were what came on the base 18-inch wheel you see here, because as you can probably guess, this is not one with a performance package. That package became standard a couple model years in, and that means the larger 19-inch wheels became standard, and those have Pirelli P0 tires. But there have actually been two other tire replacements since I've had this car. I went through one set of Hankook tires, and then I came right back to Michelin. These are actually Michelin Pilot Sport all-season tires, but because of course now I live in Michigan, and I want to make sure I'm prepared for the inclement weather surfaces. But other than that, these tires feel just like the summer tires. And I really appreciate that Hyundai kept the rear wiper blade on this generation of Veloster. The only problem is it's so short and so small that I had to order it from Hyundai directly to get it replaced. It had to be replaced last year, so after 3 years of ownership. Also, you might have noticed these emblems are gold. Yes, I found a retailer that was selling gold emblems from Hyundai. The store is no longer open, unfortunately, but they were selling aftermarket versions of various accessories. I picked these up 2 years ago, and I like the accent that they give to the car. The only thing is, I would love to get these wheels dipped in that same gold color so they match the gold of the emblems, but I'm not sure I'm ever going to do that. We'll see what happens. Another thing is I've already had to replace the battery once. That was about 2.5 years into ownership, mid-2020 or possibly late 2020. That was when this battery finally died, and I had to replace it with a new one. Also, thank goodness Hyundai doesn't use third-party aftermarket Brembo brakes or some other branded brake. These ones have actually had to be replaced fully twice. That is one issue I've noticed with this car. If you sit it outside in the rain or some wet conditions and you don't drive it for a few days, when you get back in, these calipers become clamped shut and you actually have to give it some torque for them to release. And at one point that got so bad that the car actually would not release. I could not get the car to roll away from its parked spot, and somebody had to come tow me on a flatbed trailer. That was really annoying, and it hasn't happened again since it did in 2020, but occasionally when it does rain, these brakes will clamp up and you have to really, again, give them torque and then they will release and the car will lurch forward. If you're a Hyundai Veloster N owner and you've experienced that, let me know in the comments. The only other maintenance issue that I've ever run into with the car, and if you want to count this, you can, but late last summer, a family of what I believe to be chipmunks made the engine bay down here their home. I had to pop off the cover right here, and I found a nest with a bunch of nuts and berries and things like that, and I believe a carcass. So that happened during a period of time when I wasn't driving the car very much, and I finally got back into it, and I just heard some weird noises, and turns out they were chipmunks. Luckily, they didn't chew any wires or break anything. They just got comfy in here and called it home for a few months. Moving inside, this is the area where you can tell Hyundai had to save money somewhere because they spent so much money in engineering this platform and engine and all of the things that go into making this such a fun car. They had to skimp out somewhere, and that was definitely in here. The highest quality part of this interior is the steering wheel. That is a really great steering wheel you'll find on all Hyundai N cars. I find it to be the perfect size. It has a nice leather wrap to it. And these seats, though they're not the N-Lite bucket seats, I actually prefer the way these feel on my back. The N-Lite bucket seats cannot be adjusted as much. For example, you cannot adjust the lumbar on those, whereas these seats have power lumbar that is 4-way adjustable for the driver. That is really nice to have, and it especially comes in handy on long road trips. And these seats are just generally softer because they are full cloth. But all around this interior, you're going to find hard plastics. There's really no example of soft plastic anywhere to be found. The armrest here in the center is a pretty thick but not very padded armrest, so when you put your elbow on it, you're not exactly getting any cushion there. The shifter, however, has a really nice feel to it. It's perfectly shaped for your hand, and the throws are generally pretty short. The interior is Spartan with no real contrasting colors other than the performance blue seatbelts. I really wish there was a lighter interior color. You could get a sunroof on the other top trim Velosters when those were available, but the sunroof was never available with the Veloster N. That is something I've missed very much. I had trade-offs. Would I want a turbo ultimate with all the bells and whistles, or would I want the hardcore performance and the raw driving dynamics of this without some of those creature comforts? I went with this. Sometimes I do wish I hadn't. But at the end of the day, you're not looking up there while you're driving. You're looking out here, and that's where this car really comes alive. This is the most fun car I've driven for the price. Yes, the new Honda Civic Type R is fun. Yes, all the other hot hatches are fun. But the sounds that this car makes, the steering, it's so heavy and so direct, and you feel everything coming through it. It's just such a well-balanced package. The other crazy thing is when you go from these drive modes to the N drive modes, the difference is night and day. This becomes a totally different car. Like, let's say you're coming off the highway and you're going on a cloverleaf exit. So you're going through a big circle. In these modes, you do have to slow down a little bit. When we put the car in this mode, the suspension becomes so taut and so, of course, stiff that when you go through those corners and those turns on those exits, it just feels like a little go-kart. The other thing that I still love about the Veloster is its quirkiness. This rear passenger door on the right side only is a fun party trick to show off to people, like, oh, pile in the back. And they're like, where's the door handle? People can never find it. They never look right here. They're like, where is it? I don't know where it is. And I'm like, just look up a little higher. It's right here. It's really not too bad leg-wise. Headroom is pretty tight if you're taller than me, but I can actually sit my head all the way back and I'm still 1 to 2 inches away from the ceiling. So back here is actually not as bad as you might think. But yeah, here's the view from the back seat. Yes, it is tight, but it is doable for people under 5 foot, I would say 10 or 11. 2 passengers only, you can make it work. It really isn't that bad. If you're not gonna be hauling people back here that much, luckily you can fold the seats all the way down. It gives you a very generous amount of cargo space back here. I was able to fit nearly half of my entire apartment for the move up here to Detroit into the back of this car. Of course, I also had to fill up a lot of that area too. But in general, this car can swallow a lot more items than you might think it can. Hyundai gives you this removable tonneau cover. It is hard, and there really isn't anywhere to store it down on the floor, so you kind of just make it part of the floor, flip it upside down, sit things on top of it. There's a deep well here, so this drops down about a foot, maybe less than a foot, but it's very deep down here. The seats only go up at a slight angle, so you don't have a completely flat floor, but it's big enough and open enough that you can fit some taller items that are surprisingly big in here once you configure them the correct way. I know I'm not in the majority, or else of course I wouldn't have gotten one, but I love the way the Veloster N looks. I just love the way this entire generation turned out looking. When it debuted in 2018, I thought it was a really, really nice update over the original. This one just looks a little bit more mature, a little bit more sporty, with some more chiseled angles. Of course, you've got the bodywork on the side here that just makes it look a little bit more, I don't know, a little bit more interesting than the last one. The last one definitely looked a little bit goofy and like a concept car, but to me, the design of this one is very, very well executed. And I actually, at first, thought I didn't like the look of the 2 doors on the side, but over time I have ended up preferring the side with the 2 doors because for some reason it makes the car look a little bit bigger than it is. The left side over there feels like a smaller car than it is. So I don't know, that's the cool part about it, is you get the best of both worlds, visually and flexibility wise. Let me know what you think about this. Do you have any experience with a Veloster N yourself? Do you own one? And if so, how has your experience been? I'm very eager to take notes. Thank you very much for tuning in. As always, if you like detailed car reviews, make sure to subscribe to the channel. If you love hot hatches and wish Hyundai had kept the Veloster N around a little bit longer, make sure to like this video. Of course, we also have the EV Buyer's Guide channel for more electric car content, the Auto Buyer's Guide podcast channel, and all of our social channels. Make sure to follow us there. Until next time, take care.